Okay, so we'll review this again. What is self-sabotage? It is the cycle or pattern of self-destructive actions, emotions, and mental constraints that we enact based on the glass ceiling parameters we receive as true. So this always starts in the pattern of there is a mental constraint that is based off this glass ceiling that triggers emotions that were accumulated at that time where we were developing this mental constraint. And then there's always actions that follow. So identifying the action is the easiest step for most people, and then backtracking the emotion, and then backtracking the mental constraints, which we are going to do today in our journaling exercise. So how does this affect our existence? It affects our personal success, personal growth, connected relationships, mental state, and our life potential. So last time we talked about how it affects us life potential wise and personal growth, and actually how it affects our physiology. And these limiting beliefs actually give us a limitation on how we feel we're able to exist. And today we're going to take that a little step further, because last time was definitely more in like the physical realm, and now we're going to take it more into the emotional, mental, and even spiritual realm. So the glass ceiling, again, is from a book by Gay Hendricks called The Glass Ceiling, and it talks about how far we can go or how high we can rise based on these expectations of others that have been bestowed on us. So Sadie, you and I went over that first time of these misbeliefs that actually are shown to us in our childhood, and then we just replicate them because that's what we know. This story is what we tell ourselves why we cannot have what we desire, whether that be a stable relationship or a certain amount of money or a certain type of life, or even happiness, why we can't actually achieve happiness. And as a reminder, these are not true about our own potential. And today, the piece that we're going to add is that these are actually limiting our own existence potential. So not just limiting our relationships with our loved ones and our kids and ourselves, but it can also limit how long we live. It can limit what type of life we have. And when you see other people and you see them having this life that maybe is long, but it really doesn't have it doesn't have the value that it could have for them, the quality of life, then this is what we're actually limiting in ourselves. So sources of the self-sabotage patterns, the stories of our past, those that we've learned from our potential creators, parents, grandparents, guardians, teachers, those we admire. This is the one that a lot of people forget about. Those that we admired, those that we loved, and those we sought approval from. So automatically people want to go to the source of like, oh, it was my mom, it was my dad, but it even goes beyond that. It can be, it was a mentor. It was, your first grade teacher. It was someone in your church. It could have been your older brother. You don't have any older brothers, but it could have even been your younger sister. People that were looking, that you sought approval from and you wanted admiration. So examples of this self-sabotage habit or story is, I'm not good enough. We talked about this. For this person, this job, for this life, I'm not good enough to have an amazing life. And these are things that I've seen from the beauty industry. I don't have that face for this hair. I don't have the diligence to have this body. I don't have the talent to hold this down. And inevitably, something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with me, but then it also translates into something is wrong with everyone else. And then how does this affect our existence? When we see this in it actually affecting our health, our longevity, and our physiology, we see it in forms of pain. Stress, which is your number one killer. disconnection, blame, and then personal suffering. So last time we talked about the first two vital areas, which are sleep and rest, and food and nutrition. So this is how we allow our body to rejuvenate, and also how we build our body from the resources and the tools that we're given in this lifetime. So nutrition is not only physical food, but it's also emotional food. And then today we're going to talk about movement and growth, and mindfulness and success thinking. And what I've found in all of my coaching programs in Ayurveda, that these are the four fundamental areas of vitality. So it changes you from just existing to actually having a life that you want to lead. So where could you be sabotaging your existence in any of these areas is the first question on the docket. So if you didn't have a whole lot of time to review last time, you can always go back to that one and really think about, where am I sabotaging my sleep, my restfulness, my rejuvenation? Where am I sabotaging the building blocks of my body? And then today, just as an overview, maybe think about, where do I sabotage my growth in my lifetime? Or where do I sabotage my success thinking versus just, being mindful about it? You actually want to step into a version of mindfulness that takes us to the success of whatever it is that we want. So our first one, movement and growth. And I'm going to mute you for just a minute in this one. Okay. Let's just put this away. Okay. So when we talk about movement and growth, we are beings of growth. To do that, we must move beyond where we are, obviously. And let me just put this down there. Okay. This never changes throughout our existence. If we do not move from where we are to where we are going, then we cease to exist. When we are lacking movement and growth, there are certain signs that are going to show up. So last time we talked about the identifiers of when we're not getting enough sleep and we're not getting enough rest for our body, if we're not getting the efficient or sufficient amount of nutrition. And when we look at movement and growth, it means a lot of things in our life. So when we're having difficulty with things like focusing on our goals or even setting goals, moving past a repetitive concern or issue, and I would have to say this is easier to identify in other people than potentially ourselves. Living in the present moment, so a difficulty with living in this present moment or being lost in the past. It can also be difficulty with physical or mental flexibility, because growth and movement not only comes from the spirit and the soul and the mind, but it also manifests in the body. So inflexibility in the body means inflexibility in the mind, so rigidity, and it's coming from the spiritual element. So from the chakra aspect, when we look at things like the chakras, we look into the physiology of the body, and for instance, if you have a sore throat, there's an inflexibility of the tissues of that area. And so when we look into that throat chakra, we're looking at what is the inflexibility of that mental piece or that emotional piece that's tied to that area of the body. And I can say this from experience, that when you start doing the work in your chakras, then the body just comes along for the ride. Like when you start clearing the energy of that chakra, your laryngitis miraculously goes away, or your shoulder pain miraculously starts disappearing. This can also show up as anxiety, so that mental fear of change, fear in general, so fear of the unknown, fear of what's happening or what's not happening. Mistrust is one that I see come up a lot. So when we're not moving and growing in our own lives, we typically have a mistrust of situations, of other people, of ourselves. Discomfort's a big one. Like I just can't get comfortable. This is a lack of being able to move and grow. So think of yourself in a tiny little train and you can't really move. There's so many people. Maybe some of these things come up for you as well, where you think like, oh, someone's gonna pick my pocket because we're so close to each other, or I'm not gonna be able to get off this train if something were to happen. And it's very uncomfortable. And over time, it can also develop as things like depression, where people are no longer moving. They no longer see the value in this growth. It can show up as pain, and obviously destructive patterns is what we're seeing in this. So some things that can affect your movement and growth, some areas that you will see this physically in physiology, is your breath. So the power of the breath, especially in yoga and Ayurveda, it can change your mood. It can change your actual physiology. So just sitting and just taking a big deep breath. It changes the tone of even how you're looking at growth or movement. So if you notice yourself holding your breath, you'll know that your movement can only go so far. Holding your breath, your growth will only go so far. Because without the breath, we cannot exist. But the breath is used to move pain. It's helped with depression. It can help with discomfort. You're back in that tiny little train, but now you take a deep breath. And it really helps your body to expand and become more flexible. It can also be used in practices where you're growing your breath capacity, and it will start moving you into naturally this mindset of the future instead of the past. The power of the body posture. So just take a moment and notice, how am I sitting? Where's my back? Where is my chest? Where are my collarbones? Where is my head in space? Where are my feet? Are my feet grounded? Are my feet up in the air? Is there something that's hampering that body posture that I could actually get the most movement from, the most growth? So just take a moment, just like we took a moment to take a deep breath, we also want to take a moment to just change our body posture. Just like moving the corners of your mouth up to your eyes automatically puts us in a state of a little bit more happiness, a little bit more contentment. The body movements and the postures allow our physiology to get in a place where it can actually move and, of course, grow. Just like when you're doing exercises to grow muscles, if you're doing them without the correct body posture, you're not growing the correct, you can actually be hurting muscles. So we want to do things in a body posture that moves us forward, moves us in the direction we actually want to go in. Because if you want to build your bicep and your body posture is actually doing the exercise that's building your shoulder or your forearm, then you're never going to get that bicep, right? You're never going to get that power in that place. So this is really important, to be aware of our body posture and our breath when we are looking at these self-sabotaging habits, because our body posture will hold indicators of this. It will show up when we are stuck in the past, or when we're in anxiety, or we're in fear. It's going to be a different body posture than when we're feeling courageous and confident and trusting and comfortable. And then recognizing where you are and where you want to be. So with any growth or with any movement, there's a point A and there's a point B. And point B may look like it's across a field from you. Like if you're going to take a run and you know where you're starting and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a 5-mile run. You may not know where the end of that 2.5 miles is. You just know you're going to run 2.5 miles and then you're going to come back. Or maybe you're doing a race and you don't really know what the finish line looks like. But you know where you want it to be. You know you want to get to the finish line. So where you're starting and where you want to go, to me, is one of the most important components in deciding what you get. The first step in deciding what you want is, or getting what you want, is deciding what it is. There's a saying that if you throw an arrow and you don't have a target, you're always going to hit something. But if you have a target, then you have a different body posture, right? You have a different breath that goes with this. You have a different mindset in where am I shooting this arrow? So these are all things that we're going to combine today with our journaling of where are we? Where do we want to be? What are some things that show up? And then mindfulness and success thinking. So mindfulness is something a lot of people talk about and a lot of people have heard about, where how can I put my mind into what I'm doing? How can I be more aware? Well, when we add things like success thinking, this is our goal, right? Our goal is some version of success. And success for you might be happiness, or it might be a loving relationship, or it might be equality, or it might be attention. It might be weight loss, whatever that version of success is for you. And I love this little diagram. So you think success, then you have this idea, then you're going to do it. Then you're going to do it again. You're going to do it again. You're going to do it again. Because as we notice our patterns of self-sabotage, we also have patterns of growth and movement, right? We have patterns of sleep and rest. We have patterns of food and nutrition. And we have patterns of mindfulness and success thinking. And whichever pattern we repetitively do is what shapes our life. So as we step into this conscious version, we step away from this unconscious version of self-sabotage, of the glass ceiling. It was bestowed on us by someone else, and we move into the possibilities of what we want our life to be. So success thinking is we are what we think we are. We create the reality we live in. We live what we believe. This goes down even to things like religion, or your potential of your life versus the afterlife versus your birth, your genetics versus your behaviors. We are what we think we are. So whatever we have determined is like, this is what creates our life. We will live that way. We will move that way. We will either grow or not grow because of it. And we will either move into that and have this pattern, this cycle, or we will realize that maybe what we believed yesterday is not true. Maybe we believed the world was flat yesterday. And now maybe we're thinking the world is round. Maybe we were the center of the universe and we realized we are just a piece of it, but we're all important in it. So this mechanism is ever changing throughout our existence so that we can progress forward. Because if we're not progressing forward, as this last slide shows, all change is not growth, as all movement is not forward. So some indicators we're not being mindful. Notice our picture on the left is potentially one of our influencers, right? Look at all this stuff that's going on in their thoughts. And we, maybe the little girl, we're just realizing that the sun is out and the flowers are blooming and that we're here with this person that's so important to us. And yet their mind is full of other things. So are they really present with us? And you can see, I like this picture because you can see how their lack of mindfulness in this moment and how they're influencing us can shape the reality of what we're seeing. So today we see the sun and the flowers and we're enjoying this moment, but are we going to become influenced by what they have going on in their head? So things that show you that mindfulness is not active right now is focus, difficulty with being focused or centered. So when we think of mindfulness, a lot of people think of meditation. And meditation to me means centering, focusing, putting your mind on one thing and really staying with it. No matter how many times it wants to blow up with all of these images, it's just a practice of bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back, bringing it back to the sun and the flowers, and not letting the things that aren't there be a part of that moment. So difficulty with living in the present moment, difficulty with seeing the future. Obviously, if we can't live in the present, we're cluttered by all of these other things that may or may not be real or true. Then being able to see the next step can be really challenging. Also being able to see the truth. And this is definitely my experience. This happened to me just the other day. I was having a text conversation with a friend of mine, and I was watching TV at the same time. And honestly, I went back and reread the texts the next day, and I was in a completely different zone. I read some of the messages wrong just by a few words, and it put me into an emotional state where I could no longer see the truth of our conversation. And I could not understand why this friend of mine was getting so upset with me. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you behaving this way? And I'm like, why are you doing that? If I had just been in the moment of that conversation, even via text, it would not have triggered emotions that were not true. Because when I reread the whole conversation the next day, I was like, ugh, that's not at all what they were saying. That's not at all what they were trying to convey. So being able to see the future and the truth, accepting your own desires are possible. Because if we're stuck in this cloud of thoughts and fears and things going on, then we can't actually see the possibilities. We can't actually see the end of the track because we're so worried about the road ahead. We don't know what the terrain's going to be like. We don't know if it's going to rain. We don't know if it's going to be cold. We don't know if it's going to be hot. We don't know how many people are going to be there. Are kids going to have, are there going to be strollers that I have to run around? Right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen on this trail, and I'm losing sight of the end point or my success. Doubt of self and others is definitely a big one that I see in mindfulness, because when we doubt, we are not seeing our potential or others' potential. Fear, anxiety, again, the same things that come up with movement and growth. We have a difficulty with change because, again, we are so stuck in a full mind, not mindfulness of the moment. Discretion. So being able to take a situation and really figure out what's happening, what's truly happening, going back to that seeing the truth, being discretionary about someone's words or someone's actions or a situation, because we are so stuck in that emotional piece of ourselves. And remember, emotions are driven by mental constraints, and then emotions create these actions, typically unconscious if we're in our pattern. Discernment, so knowing or seeing the actual truth behind something. Painful memories. So this has to do with being stuck in the past, connecting with others. Notice the picture. He's not connecting with her, or her is not connecting with her, whichever one. And connecting with those higher attainments. So connecting with what you want your success to be. So when we think of mindfulness, we have to definitely take into the consideration the power of the mind. Mental constraints drive our emotions, and then emotions will drive our actions. Emotions will also drive our thoughts. So see how it becomes that cycle, like you're stuck in this mental constraint. So then you have these emotions that go with it, and then it's going to change your thoughts about anything that happens beyond that. So the power of changing the mind. The first place that we make all change is in the mind. The power of the spirit. So in Ayurvedic practice, just like all illnesses come from a spiritual place, just like the chakras. For something to actually be manifesting physically, it starts in this spiritual realm. We are spiritual beings living in a physical body. So the power of the spirit really comes through the mind and the emotions. So knowing the power of the spirit, this will get into some of our steps of appraisal, knowing that you're in control. You get to be in control of your own life and your own success and your own vitality and your own existence. And where does that control come from? Well, if you believe in the higher power, even if it's not of something outside of you, at least believe in the higher power of yourself. You get to pick. And of course, that means the power of you. The power of you in all of its forms, in the spiritual form, the mental form, the physical form. Basically, we are backtracking, right? We're backtracking these physical actions and this physical realm into the mind, and then back into what is my real purpose of success. Okay, so I am going to do a little unmute here. Okay, so this is going to be our little journaling part of it.
Okay.
And let's see, let's go back into this. Okay, so I actually did this weekend in one of my practices. So I want you to just grab a piece of paper, and your very first question you're going to put on there is, what is my self-destruct pattern? Because self-sabotage is the big picture. But self-destruct, I like to think of as the low-grade self-sabotage. It's the beginning steps. And when you think about this, it doesn't matter which realm you want to go with. So go with the one that feels the most accessible for you. So, like we talked about a little bit about how it can affect relationships and then your health. So again, it's easier sometimes for people to see like, how do I destroy my sleep? How do I destroy my food choices? Or even how do you destroy like your mental state? Like you're happy, and then what happens when you go from there to, I'm back into depressed mode. So I want you to just make a list of like, what is my self-destruct pattern? So think of any of these realms, the most accessible, and see if you can really define like, okay, I do this every single time. And then I do this. And then I do this. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. And then we're going to compare notes. I want to hear where yours is. And I will, of course, share mine.
Okay.
And then once you've kind of given yourself that list, then through that, identify what is the one thing you're searching for. Is it attention? Is it love? Is it control? And then the next step is, where does this come from? Where does this need come from? The thing that we're searching for. Or adversely, where does the lack of it come from? Maybe even, where did this example pattern come from? So I like to actually put this on my page. Where does that come from? And then this is the next thing to write on your paper. Why is this belief not true? Or why is it not true? And that typically points to the pattern, where it came from. What's the thing that we need? This part is actually about reframing. And then our last question is, where can I change the pattern? And you go through this step by step, using awareness to really discern, like, where's the step that I lose it? Where's the step that it just destroys everything? There's always one. Maybe there's two. So to really tap into these methods, which I find take a lot of work. So I find that journaling just really helps kind of get it all out of our heads and into a concrete place. You know, step one is actually noticing that we're self-sabotaging. Okay. So let's review this. So I'm going to share just to give you an idea of how this looks. So remember that we are identifying our self-sabotage pattern, right? Like that's step number one. What is my self-sabotage pattern? So self-destruct is your low grade. So I reflected on myself, on risk taking. And my self-sabotage or my self-destruct pattern looks like I'm open to possibilities. I have no intentions. But then I get attention, right? Like the one thing I'm looking for is attention. That's what I want in this pattern. And once I get it, I respond to it. But then I find myself backing away from it. Backing away from any possibilities that may arise, creating boundaries. There's a lot of fear and doubt about it because then I'm wondering, like, do I want attention? I don't know. This has happened a lot in just stepping into online platforms. Like, do I want all this attention? It's like being a celebrity. And then I keep my distance while I simmer on things. Or I kind of flirt with the idea of this attention. I think about it. And then I actually move into a phase where I fantasize or maybe even over fantasize about this attention. Like it creates a desire for me to want that attention even more. And generally that is where I step into the risk. I step into the action. And typically it's not always the most thought-provoked action, because then as I get the attention, then I create more boundaries and I question them. And I'm like, gosh, were these boundaries right? Like, should I have done it this way? Am I figuring this all out quickly? Like somebody must know better. And then I crave more and more attention. And then I, of course, break the boundaries. And then I move into these new possibilities. Like, oh, maybe this is possible now. Like if I do it this way, well, I did it this way once and now I'm getting more attention. So maybe I should move into this. And then it starts to intensify. And then I go back through the pattern where I back up again. I'm like, I don't know, maybe this is not right. And then I think about it and I'm like, oh, maybe it's not so bad. And then I go into the fantasize mode where I'm like, oh, it could be like this. And eventually the risk taking gets so overwhelming that I realize I didn't follow through with my success thinking. I wasn't in the moment. I'm not actually growing. Like I'm stepping backwards. So what I realize is between steps 2 and 3 is where I lose it. It's when I'm looking for attention. I get a little, then I shy away if it feels dangerous. Then I want more and start rethinking the danger scale. Then I start flirting with danger until I'm consumed with the exploration. Once I take the dangerous plunge, I'm hooked. Then I want more and more, and I don't understand why I can't have more. Then I move back into doubt and fear of danger, and the cycle begins again. I turn doubt and fear into risk, not a safe risk, a crazy risk, which I know could have terrible repercussions. But I take the risk, and then I have to hide the evidence. And then I start the lying game to myself. And then when I ask myself the question of what do I really want? I wanted attention. And what does it feel like when you don't have this? Sometimes is a better way to really identify it is when I don't have attention, I feel lonely and I feel unwanted, and useless, and powerless, and afraid. This is something we even see, if you're not getting a call back from someone, or if you get on the text high or the friend request high that we see on social media. And I ask myself, where does this come from? Like, where did this need for attention come from? And then also, where did all these like loneliness, unwanted, useless, like where did all those come from? And I realized it comes from my dad. I felt like as a child that he would love you and stay as long as you were useful and worth it. I had a fear of being left by him. I had a fear that I wasn't wanted or cared for or sacred to him. And I feared that if I lost my usefulness, like if I wasn't useful to him, then he wouldn't appreciate or love me. Which is interesting when you think about that, because when I actually ask myself, is that true? The conscious answer is no. My dad never left. As many times as he threatened to leave our family when he got all hot and bothered about things, he never left. He wanted to be important too, though. This was his burden, that he felt like he wasn't worth it. And so he was actually searching for approval in us as his kids. He was searching for worth. He didn't feel sacred to us. He felt disposable. He felt like we were going to grow up and just leave him. He felt that we didn't need him, especially when we got older. So he created ways to be useful. He felt he was teaching us relationship security by being useful. He felt if you were useful, people would love you, people would appreciate you, as long as you were useful. But it actually became relationship insecurity for me, because you're never always going to feel useful enough to someone. So what is the truth is what I have to ask myself. Now that I know what's not true, what is true? I truly believe that I'm sacred and I don't need to be useful to be loved and cherished. My care is my own. Remember, we talked about self-care is the opposite of self-sabotage. When I get lonely, I stop taking care of myself. I drink, I eat poorly. I look to everyone else for attention and proof that I'm useful or beautiful or amazing or fantastic or powerful. I want to feel special and significant. So how can I change this? How can I change wanting to feel special and significant without looking to other people for attention? And I realized that my answer was what I already knew, right? My conscious answer is the same practice, is the same course that I actually teach other people. And it's the self-care module. It's taking care of me. It's taking care of my needs, my sleep, my rest, my food, my nutrition, my movement, my growth, my success thinking, my mindfulness. It's when I lose my mind that I start looking to all of these other things. So consciously controlling what I do next starts with, for me personally, my self-care module. So going back to, when do I need to be asleep to really get the rejuvenation for my body? What do I need to eat? Who do I need to be around? What do I need? What activities do I need to be involved in? Who do I need in my space? The people that I love, the people that I appreciate, the people that I cherish are the people I need in my space. And I need to make a time just for that, just to love those people. Because to just love to love without worrying about if someone else is going to love me takes away the need. And remember, my personal key to change is give yourself what you want to receive. So for me, it's give myself significance. Make myself feel special. Take time with me. Take time to do things that I really care about. Take time with people that I really care about. Self-care is the opposite of self-sabotage. And you can do this too. You're in control of your outcomes. You're the only one responsible for your life. And you can only change yourself. I can't go back and change my dad. Now, if he were still on this earth, maybe I'd have some better insight on it. But I can change me. So we have lost everyone on this call because of internet problems. But again, remember that you can email me. So even if you want to snap a picture of this little journal and send it to me, if you want to schedule a call that we can just go over it, if there's any way that I can help you. And next month on Tuesday, August 14th and 21st, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a new webinar called The Bird, the Monkey, and the Elephant. So Ayurvedic personalities and how to build relationships. So we'll actually go over each one of these Ayurvedic personalities. We all fit into different ones at different times, but identifying the qualities of them so that you can see them coming at you. And this is also going to help build relationships as you're able to see, this is the monkey, the bird, or the elephant. What do I want to do to respond to this, depending on what I want my success to be in this relationship. Okay, so hopefully I'll see you guys next month for the next webinar. You can register online at www.seedoflifecollective.com. And thank you so much for joining me. I will hopefully see all of you guys tonight at 6 p.m. If not, there will be an encore presentation just for you. So again, thank you very much for joining me, your host, Melody Rogers from the Seed of Life Alternative Health Collective. I hope this was helpful, and I definitely encourage you to review your own self-destruct patterns and know that you can change them. Thank you so much.